Good to be back with you for March's newsletter, and today we want to think a little bit about moving on, transition. And it might feel like this is a little bit early to be thinking about transition, those movement points from, I don't know, your toddler group into preschool or primary school to secondary school or leaving secondary school. But we've just been having a chat with our colleague Sophie about what's going on in her family life at the moment, and her child is moving school in 18 months' time, and yet as a family they're already thinking about that whole process for them. So a few months for us might feel like a long time to be thinking about it, but in the lives of the families that we're supporting, these things are on their mind for long periods of time as they start to really consider what these big moments of change in the life of not just the child but the whole family are going to have, the choices they've got to make, the impact that's going to have. So we want to think a little bit about how we can really come alongside and support families as they go through these moments of transition and change in their lives.
And it's easy for us to forget as well what moments of transition there are, and to focus solely on that big point of transition from primary to secondary school, which is important. We're not dismissing that at all, but all through family lives there are transitions which are really big for families. You think of parents when maternity and paternity leave are coming to an end and a child might be going into childcare. That's huge. Moving on from just going to toddler groups into preschool, or from preschool into reception. And the big one is actually reception, foundation stage, into year one, where school really hits. And they're big and they're important at every stage for every family. The burgeoning idea that you can get your photo taken as you graduate from nursery tells us a huge amount, and important for us as churches to be involved, because then we've got that whole pattern of family life that we're coming alongside people and showing the empathy and understanding that we know that families really need in the busyness of their family lives. And we're perhaps used to going into school and talking classes through It's Your Move. There is a new publication actually coming out from Scripture Union about that transition from into school life itself, which is really going to be worth looking out for. Be interesting to see. Don't know if you caught up, are they doing any webinars? We will find out and put it in the information pages of the newsletter.
And even once you're at secondary school as well, it's not a smooth process all the way through that as well. The transition from the end of year 9 into year 10 when you're moving into doing your GCSEs can be a hugely traumatic time and a difficult time. That whole process of choosing your options, thinking about what you want to study, that's starting to think about, this might be a long-term destiny for me, and making those option choices. That transition period is a really challenging one, particularly for year 9s when they're going through all those other changes of adolescence as well. And then post GCSEs into post 16, whether it's sixth form or college, again some massive changes, and that change to maybe leaving school and going into a college rather than sixth form, it can be a huge thing. And of course then there's the things at 18 and moving on from that, and we can often focus significantly around moving to university, but we know that statistically the numbers of young people going to university is going down, and even those that are going to university are often choosing to stay at home and study in a university close to home. So for them, they're moving and they're changing, but they might not be moving on. I was chatting to a colleague yesterday, and we both have teenagers in our families who are coming to the end of doing their A-levels, and we were talking about how challenging it is as a parent to be living in a household essentially with another adult, but they're also your child, and you're a parent but you're also another adult, and how are we supporting families as they go through that transition phase? And as Joe says, we want to encourage you all to think about journeying on those pathways with people, not just seeing this as a point in time where we can maybe drop in and drop out, but we can actually be there through all of this, to hold people, to hear from people, to have empathy, to understand what they're going through, and particularly for parents, how do they deal with the emotional challenge of seeing their child grow up and move into those new phases. We have to change who we are as parents in those spaces, and we can be alongside people through all of those times.
So it's really worth thinking about whether actually you're going to get on board with some of this culture and have some little graduations or moving on from toddler group, acknowledging these times and changes here. You don't have to go the full waterboard and gown, but what are you sending with them? And those of you that have heard me speak a few times will know I'm a huge advocate for actually that we give children their Bible when they arrive in school, not when they're leaving, because it can accompany them and they can be helped to use their Bible. It can become theirs and say, it's okay. We do fill it with bookmarks and post-it notes, and actually, we do write in our Bibles. They are ours, and they are part of our discipleship journey and companions. So many things we can do.
And my other top tip around all of these things is to say that we don't have to conform to those transition points that they're going through, that the education system puts them through. And we know that, in some ways we have to do things. A child that's now in preschool isn't necessarily going to be able to come to your stay and play group, your parent toddler group, but during half term and other holidays, welcoming them back into that might be really, really helpful for that child to see that you're still part of their life. We don't have to start our youth group at year 7. We can run youth groups that are year 5 to year 8, and then they can be journeying with us when everything else is changing in their lives. And similarly, we're having some interesting conversations around how we think about the ending of our youth groups. Maybe we need to be transitioning young people out of our youth groups earlier than 18, or extending our youth groups post-18, particularly for those that are staying around, so that they're not finding everything changes at that single point. And actually, we can be a consistent part of their life when everything else is changing them around.
Yeah. And with the parents, what are we offering them? Maybe they just need a chance to, we were talking about change earlier as a team here. Perhaps we just need somewhere to scream, to let it all out, to share with one another, and to give that all over to God. Maybe they get to write their stuff down anonymously, burn it, shred it, whatever is appropriate for them, but a place where they can just unburden themselves before the Lord might be the thing that they need to do.
Yeah. So the sun's out and the spring flowers are coming up, but we're already thinking about summer and those changes that are happening in the autumn. But we want to encourage you to just keep coming alongside all of those families that you know and you love and that you serve, and be present for them as they're negotiating some of these changes that they might be quite scared of or be feeling quite anxious about.
Have a good Lent.
Yeah, and we'll catch up with you soon. Bye.